Hey, this is E-Rock at Fanboy Films. Welcome back to the Late Night Saga. And today I'm going to review Johnny Carson, the King of Late Night. This was part of a program called The American Masters, which is on PBS, which I think has been running for like 20 years or 30 years. I think this kind of got separated out. Maybe it was popular enough, so it got its own DVD release. I don't know if they all do, but it's like a 90-minute episode of their show, I guess, kind of like an A&E biography. I don't think PBS has a streaming service yet, so I don't know where you can find this to watch other than the Blu-ray or DVD. Probably running on cable if you have cable TV still. But yeah, recently watching the story of Late Night, it made me, want to find out more about a lot of the topics that were covered in that documentary. And so I was seeking out some other ones, and this is one of them. This is also the one referenced back when I did the Joan Rivers versus Johnny Carson war. And she's on the Howard Stern show, and she says, "Oh, it's so stupid that they did this documentary." And it's funny because she's in it.
Did you do something wild and visit the grave of Johnny Carson?
Yeah.
Did you go to Johnny Carson's grave because it was a good thing to do for television?
No.
Or did you really feel like you needed to go there?
It's come up again. I don't know. Oh, because they did this stupid documentary on him.
Right.
So suddenly the whole thing is coming up again.
Stupid.
Stupid. He knew where you were going. He knew when to come in and say, "How fat was she?" He knew when not to say it.
But it's kind of the typical, there's a lot of talking heads. They got interview footage with, a lot of people that were involved. This one is kind of more interesting because on the story of Late Night, they interviewed a lot more network executives and sort of behind the scenes people, and not really the people that worked on the shows. And in this one, they did interview, well, I guess not Johnny Carson or any of his people, but they interviewed, Conan O'Brien and Jay Leno and David Letterman and a lot of people that actually knew Johnny and worked with him. I guess Conan didn't really, but, Dave and Jay and a lot of, Dick Cavett and a lot of the people that really worked with him. I should say a lot of the other on-air hosts that worked with him, I guess. I mean, obviously, that's what I kind of liked about the story of Late Night was that they had a lot of behind-the-scenes people that you don't necessarily hear from as much. So the interesting thing about this documentary also is not, they don't spend all of it talking about The Tonight Show. It's not just like a 90-minute highlight reel of Tonight Show footage. A lot of it is spent talking about Johnny's personal life. For some reason, I made a note right up front that he had an interview with Rona Barrett. That was one of the clips I was trying to find if you ever saw my late night melee between Rona Barrett and Tom Snyder, that I saw that Johnny only had her on the show twice, and I think it was in relation to The Tomorrow Show and probably how much it bugged Tom Snyder to have her there. And I never was able to find either of those clips. But right up front of this thing, they have a clip of Rona Barrett on The Tonight Show, so I'm like, it's probably one of those ones I want, and NBC has it, and they won't let anybody see it. If you see enough of this footage, after a while, you start to recognize it. Some of the clips from Johnny's personal life were from a TV special he did called Johnny Goes Home, which was late in the run of The Tonight Show, and he went back to Nebraska to visit, his old school and his old house he grew up in. So it's like, a lot of that stuff, it's not new footage for this documentary. It's just more found footage, just like I would do in one of my YouTube videos. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that they covered that I really liked was, his young life, the Great Carsoni. That was his stage name as a magician that he did in his, probably in his teenage years. And then, he got into radio. He got into local TV, and I haven't seen a lot of that stuff before. I've seen still pictures of some of this, but finding footage from the local TV and some of the, the old family movies was really cool. They do talk about his fascination with Jack Benny and how he was, a lot of people maybe at the time said he was kind of basing a lot of his mannerisms and his way of speaking and moving on Jack Benny. There's a clip on YouTube that I've seen a lot of times where he's on Jack Benny's show and they talk about it and make fun of it.
Now you may not realize this, but every move you make, your delivery, every little inflection that you have is exactly the way I work, and I don't think it's fair.
You get the other usual suspects. You get clips from he had a show called The Johnny Carson Show. He had Carson's Cellar, or Carson's Comedy Cellar, I think it's been called. And then, of course, his biggest show, his big network show was Who Do You Trust, which was a game show. He was a game show host before he became a talk show host, kind of like Pat Sajak, although I'd say he did it slightly better. They do briefly touch upon all of Johnny's wives, all 4 of them, I think, and all, how they met, how they married, how it affected his career. And they talk about how his second wife is the one who got him The Tonight Show. She was the one, I guess she knew somebody at NBC, some executives, and she was able to keep saying, hey, that guy that's on the game show, you should get him on The Tonight Show, because when Jack Parr left The Tonight Show, they didn't know who to replace him with, and there was kind of a succession of guest hosts, which I didn't realize lasted, I think they said it lasted a couple years. I always thought it was like a couple months, but I think it was much longer than that, and so they had to kind of break the spell by casting Johnny. I guess kind of what happened on Later with Greg Kinnear, 4 years of guest host. This documentary really shows a lot about Johnny's relationship with Ed McMahon, how I think they were on Who Do You Trust? Ed was the announcer on that, and he came with him to The Tonight Show, and how they were friends in real life and went on vacation together, and their families hung out together. And it's interesting to note how they worked together, how they really were a comedy duo. I know a lot of people think it was all Johnny and Ed was just the guy on the couch laughing at him, but there was more to it than that. It was good to always have a guy there when he needed a second guy for a bit. They made fun of Ed. Ed kind of got a reputation or a character on the show as being an alcoholic, which they said was not earned really, and he was not a big drinker in real life, but Johnny Carson was a big drinker in real life and got into a lot of trouble over it. Well, I don't know if he got into trouble. I think a lot of people commented on it. I think he was bulletproof. I don't think it got him into any real trouble, but probably cost him his marriages, but They talk about Johnny's flirtatiousness and how maybe he was between wives, or maybe he was even with one of his wives, but he liked the ladies, and he I think had a lot of ladies on the side, and he definitely flirted with a lot of women on his show. So today that probably would be deemed not so appropriate. I suppose back then we just laughed at it. They talked about how Johnny liked to be well dressed and how he had his own line of apparel. That's kind of something that you don't always think about as a viewer, but I guess there was a lot that goes into a celebrity's public image. I'm sure the same is true of all the current late night hosts. Almost all of them still wear suits and look pretty nice. And I don't know how many of them have their own apparel line though. I think Johnny was pretty savvy when it came to business, and if there's going to be 10 different revenue streams attached to the show, maybe I should have more than just being the host or eventually becoming the owner of the show. But it's like maybe I should have my own clothing line or my own whatever line. And they do talk about the tough negotiations and how he became the highest paid TV star, period, at least when he was on, and maybe historically ever. When they said at one point he was bringing in 3/4 of NBC's revenue on The Tonight Show or something like that, and I think their network was doing better than the other networks, so he was able to demand a lot every time he re-signed his contract. And so that's when he moved the show from New York to LA because he wanted to, and when he eventually went down to hosting 3 nights a week, and when they shortened the show from 90 minutes to 60 minutes, and then when he actually got ownership of not only all the new shows going forward but the entire back catalog, which is why probably why you don't see NBC promoting it as much as like collections or repeats or streaming, because they don't own it, so they don't care, right? I mean, they'll put it, it's a feather in their cap that The Tonight Show used to be hosted by Johnny Carson, but they're not selling collections or DVD sets or whatever of it because that's all owned by Carson Entertainment, which I think is owned by one of Johnny's nephews. The only thing they seem to be doing with it right now is they have their own YouTube channel where they put out new clips all the time of, classic clips. You would think they would just put it onto a streaming service at some point. Like what Vince McMahon did with the WWE network recently, I think. Instead of continuing to run his own, whatever it was, pay satellite channel, he recently licensed it out to NBC, Universal, Comcast to stream it on Peacock, I think. I'm surprised the Carson people don't do something like that, just sign a deal with a streaming service to get the whole Carson library out there. Every video, running ads on it, getting money, instead of just sitting in the library somewhere. I'm sure by now they probably digitized the whole collection, right? I mean, hopefully. But back to the documentary. What this one did, which I really liked that I haven't seen elsewhere, was it actually told us some of what happened with Johnny's life after he left The Tonight Show. And everybody said he lived a private life. He didn't do any other TV work after that. They talked about how he moved to Africa for, I don't know how long, if it was like a year or 2 years or half a year. Some chunk of time he moved to Africa. He learned Swahili. I guess he wanted to find out what made other cultures laugh and he wanted to try to make other people laugh in their own language, not in English, which seems like quite a challenge to take on, so that's really cool. They didn't have any film or anything on that, they just had some pictures, but that would be really cool to see a whole documentary about that, you know. And a lot of what they talk about Johnny, he owned a yacht, he liked to go out, you know, on his boat a lot, and invite friends over, and they would have dinner and go cruising around in the bay or whatever. So on the version of this documentary I saw was the DVD, and it had, you know, extra scenes on it. It had deleted scenes. Some of them, like David Letterman talks about going out on Johnny's yacht with him and cruising around at night. I know Conan O'Brien has one where he talks about meeting Johnny at a awards banquet or something like that. There's another one with Kevin Spacey in the vocal booth. He was the narrator of this documentary. I guess he talks about how his career was kind of taking off right when Johnny was retiring, so he felt very lucky that he kind of squeaked in under the finish line. He was able to get on the show while Johnny was still doing it, and he had done some kind of a TV movie or something, and Johnny invited him on for that, and they replay the video for him. He does kind of a reaction video watching his first appearance on Johnny, you know, 25 years earlier or whatever. So in summary, Johnny Carson, King of Late Night, American Masters, pretty good. I would recommend it. If you've already seen Johnny's Greatest Hits on The Tonight Show, a lot of the middle chunk of this is going to seem familiar, but for the stuff about his personal life at the beginning and what he does after retirement, if that interests you, I would recommend watch this one. And that's it. See you next time. To clarify, the Carson Entertainment Group, which manages The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson library, licenses clips from JohnnyCarson.com, and maintains the YouTube channel Johnny Carson, should not be confused with CarsonEntertainment.com, the webpage of Gary and Janine Carson, who run a magic act which tours the world, or the Facebook page Carson Entertainment, which is for a local DJ in the southern tier of New York State.